Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. And we are on, I think this is part 7 now of our look at Warhammer Quest. We're going to be taking a look at 3 more warriors today. And this will be the last of the Warhammer Quest series for about a week or so. I'm not going to be around the house as much for a few days, and I won't have access to my Warhammer Quest stuff. So we will get back to it. But for now, we're just going to take a look at these 3 warriors. I did want to show you guys, I finished up some painting yesterday on the Orc Biggins from the Lair of the Orc Lord expansion. I really like the way these guys turned out. I need to finish up their shields, but the orcs themselves are done. And I'm getting a little faster, so these guys took me about 2 hours each. I worked on all 3 of them at the same time, kind of an assembly line style. But I'm really happy with the way these guys turned out. And then one more here. So all I gotta do is finish up their shields and glue their shields on. 3 more guys. So I painted almost 6 guys in a week. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so today we're going to take a look at the War Dancer, the Witch Hunter, and the Imperial Noble. Now the War Dancer I do not have the box for, and when I bought this it came painted, and I like the paint job, so I'm going to keep it. It's actually a pretty nice paint job. I don't feel the need to strip it and paint it myself to add my own personality to it or something. It's fine. And then let's see, here is the War Dancer's level 1 card. Now, as you can probably have noticed already, there's not a single female character in, I don't think in Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I don't know if there's a single female hero or not. There's definitely not a single female hero in Warhammer Quest, which is kind of a shame. Excuse me. I don't know why they did that or chose not to have any female characters, so I do want to try to get some alternate female models for people to use if they want to. So the War Dancer has his stats, and then his special equipment card is the Belt of Ariel, and his weapon is the Swords of Orion. They can never wear any armor. They break pinning at a 3+, and then they have some special rules on the back here. So in Warhammer Quest, a warrior may move up to 4 squares a turn, and if this brings him into contact with the monster, he may then fight. If he only uses up to 2 squares of movement to reach his foe, for example, his other 2 squares of movement are lost. Once a warrior starts fighting, he may not move again. However, the War Dancer has the Dance of Death. The War Dancer's natural ability and uncanny affinity with his weapon makes him an awesome warrior. The War Dancer in combat is terrible yet graceful sight, spinning and leaping, leaving only death in its wake. The War Dancer's Dance of Death allows him to move, fight, move again, and perhaps even fight again, all in one turn. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of like a whirling dervish. And then the Belt of Ariel. This magical belt was given to the War Dancer by Ariel, Queen of the Wood Elves. The belt has the power to absorb damage and even deflect hits taken by the War Dancer. So roll a dice if the War Dancer at the start of each turn. If you roll a 1, the belt has no effect. It can go anywhere from the belt adds +1 to the War Dancer's toughness, or the belt protects the War Dancer from any single attack this turn. He may choose to ignore any single blow which hits him. And then his weapon that he starts with is the Swords of Orion. So there's actually 2 of them. He's dual wielding them. And these finely crafted swords were given into the War Dancer's keeping by Orion, King of the Wood Elves. If the War Dancer is carrying something that stops him from using both swords, for example, the lantern, then this rule does not apply. Okay, so he has to be dual wielding these to get this bonus. If the War Dancer kills a monster with a single blow using a Sword of Orion, he gets a death blow as normal. Usually a death blow is stopped if it comes up to a square blocked by a wall, doorway, or another warrior. However, in this situation, because of his twin swords, the War Dancer may carry on his death blow past a blocked square by quickly shifting his attack to his other sword. The death blow thus carries on as normal past the blocked square. If the death blow is blocked again, it stops. So I don't think we covered death blow. Death blow was a way, it was kind of like an overkill, where if you killed an enemy with one blow, then you could carry on an attack to an adjacent enemy as long as that enemy wasn't blocked by another warrior or a blocking square. So his ability with the War Dancer's ability with his Sword of Orion is he ignores that penalty to death blow about blocking squares and whatnot. And so then here's the manual. Again, these are all set up exactly the same way. Background, introduction, starting a War Dancer, your stats, going into the wounds, more details about his special rules and equipment, a little note about how he cannot use any armor, what treasure he can use, and then it gives you a little example of how the War Dancer can move around in combat and attack while or in between spaces of movement. And then we get into the settlement pages, War Dancers in Village. So a War Dancer will accompany other warriors into a village to purchase the goods available. The only place a War Dancer will not go in the village is the alehouse. Although a small village is a fairly open place, the tight press of rowdy drunkards and the fog of smoke prevalent in any alehouse is too much for the War Dancer. If other warriors wish to enter the alehouse, the War Dancer will wait elsewhere. And then, so you can search for the Wood Elf troop, which I think all of the elf characters can search for the Wood Elf troop. When the War Dancer reaches a settlement, they must decide how long they are going to spend there. If the War Dancer does not wish to go with them, he then has this long to find a Wood Elf troop, visit them, and return to the settlement. So the other warriors can go into the settlement, and the War Dancer can go and look for the Wood Elf troop. As the warriors approach a settlement, the War Dancer will be looking out for signs of the Wood Elf troop. Once the warriors have decided how long they will stay at the settlement and departed on their way, the War Dancer stays behind, searching for the troop. To see how he fares, roll a d6. Okay, so then Wood Elf troops on the move. There's another way that the War Dancer may find a Wood Elf troop. If the warriors roll an uneventful weak result on a hazards table during a journey, the War Dancer may come across signs of the troop. Roll a d6. On a roll of a 6, the War Dancer spies hidden camp off the trail. Okay, so then we have the Elf Quarter. So once the War Dancer does find the Elf Quarter, he will often be made less than welcome by the elves there. So the normal elves don't really like the War Dancers. They're kind of like the savages of the elf realms. And then here we have the special rules for the Wood Elf troops. So let's see. So then the first day the War Dancer spends visiting the troop, he must spend seeing the troop elder. Roll on the following dice. So then this tells you kind of how the troop elder greets your War Dancer. So lots of options here. So like even the option 1, you have up to 6 options. Option 2. So lots of neat stuff for the Wood Elf or the War Dancer to do. And then you also have special traders that you can visit, special things that only the Wood Elf can buy. The Wild Spirit. Sometimes a traveling troop of Wood Elves may be watched over by a wild spirit, part War Dancer, part spirit. This immortal creature is a true master of the dance of death. The wild spirit bears the ritual scars and markings of his kind, and is a majestic and fearsome sight to behold. So this warrior expansion really does add a lot to the settlement phase. And he's really fun to play as a melee character. You can do a lot of damage. If you took him and the Pit Fighter as a 2-man team, that would be a lot of fun. And then he's got his special events. Human traders, how they react to him. Wood elf's reactions to him. Unknown travelers. So yeah, just a ton of stuff in here on how to play the War Dancer. I think this is one of the more robust expansions and what it adds to the settlement phases. Next up is one of my favorites, and that is the Witch Hunter. Again, this guy came painted. I did not paint him, but I think he looks okay, so I'm going to keep it like that. 2 hours of my life I won't have to spend. And then we have his level 1 card. Now he comes with some tokens for faith, which I don't have out right now. But his tokens for faith are kind of like the wizard's power tokens. They let him use his prayers. So he starts with magical amulets, and he fights with a saber and a pistol. And his wounds, again, are very swingy, so he doesn't get a guaranteed plus number. He just starts with 2d6. So you could have a pretty weak Witch Hunter right off the bat. There is a weapon. So the Witch Hunter fights with a saber, which causes 1d6 plus 3 wounds. If he rolls a 6 to hit, he causes an extra wound. And then he also carries his pistol to engage his opponents in longer range. So what's interesting about Warhammer Quest is it kind of takes place on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution, I guess. There's gunpowder, and there's even like some missiles and more technological advancements in this than there is in something like Dungeons and Dragons or other fantasy role-playing. So that is interesting, and most of the guns are kind of like, black powder weapons and muskets and stuff like that. So they're not like machine guns, although I think there probably are some Skaven Gatling guns or something like that. But the Witch Hunter also carries a pistol to engage his opponents at longer range. To hit with the pistol, roll over the Witch Hunter's ballistic skill on a d6. So his ballistic skill, so he has to hit a 4-up. The pistol only has a range of 6 squares and is a strength 5 weapon. So remember, ranged weapons, they don't use your strength, the hero's strength, or the warrior's strength for damage. They use the strength of the weapon. Once it is fired, the pistol must be reloaded before it can be fired again. It takes a whole turn to reload, during which time the Witch Hunter may do nothing else. So also wounds. When rolling for wounds, the Witch Hunter may re-roll 2s as well as 1s, but must always accept the second result. So you get a little buffer, so you don't have like a really weak starting character, but again, you do have to take the second result. And then faith. The Witch Hunter starts an adventure with 1d6 faith counters, which he uses up during the game. When you create a new Witch Hunter, roll a dice to see how many faith counters he has, re-rolling if you get a 1. This is the Witch Hunter's starting faith and should be noted on his adventure record sheet. The faith counters go in the faith box on the front of the card. The Witch Hunter can use 1 faith counter to add +1 to any die roll he makes. Each time he uses this, he must discard a faith counter. When he has no faith counters left, he can no longer adjust his die roll this way. The Witch Hunter can use as many faith counters at one time as he likes. And then what kind of equipment he can use. The only hand-to-hand weapons a Witch Hunter may use are any form of sword or dagger, including magical items. He may not wear armor other than his gorget. I do not know that word. I'll have to look that up. Nor a helmet, but he may carry a shield and wear furs. The Witch Hunter may not use missile weapons other than his pistol. He may use only magical items such as Time Freeze Ring, but may not use any treasures specifically designed for wizards. So they just want to distinguish the fact that he's not a wizard, even though he has some forms of magical powers. And then his magical amulet. So this is something that he wears, and the Witch Hunter begins the game with 1d6 magical amulets. Roll a dice to see how many you get. If you roll 1, you may re-roll. And then roll to determine what sort each amulet is, and make a note of them on your card. So you have an amulet of purity, an amulet of healing, amulet of holy fire, strength, fury, and the the Amulet of Al-Khadizar. Let's see. This amulet is used against a monster of the witch hunter's choosing. Select any monster on the board and roll a dice to see what effect this amulet has. The monster loses 1 attack, or the monster loses 1 attack and suffers 1d6 wounds with no deductions for toughness or armor. So that's pretty cool. I mean, you could start this game with like a witch hunter with 12 wounds and 6 different amulets. And 6 faith. That would be like the super war dancer. That would be a lot of fun to play. Sometimes it's fun to when you start a new warrior to not do random rolls, but just start them as like the strongest they could possibly be using just the basic rules, and that can be fun. A little cheating, but sometimes these games can be very brutal. And yep, same things here. Goes over it with more detail about each of his starting weapons and starting powers. And then we get into the advanced rules. A witch hunter abhors evil sorcerers and gains double gold if he kills an evil magic user. This does not include greater demons. So the witch hunters are all about going after witches and evil sorcerers and warlocks and stuff. Kind of like Salem witch hunters, I guess you could say, only these guys are going after actual evil witches. If a witch hunter ever ends an adventure with his current faith at less than 1 point of faith per battle level, he is very low ebb indeed. Before he can return to a settlement, he must resolve the turmoil going on within him. Does he have the willpower, the faith to go on as a witch hunter, or must he part company with the warriors and begin a new career elsewhere? So he can have like a crisis of faith, which I really like that. I think that's really cool. I always like to play faith-based characters in games. I mean, I'm kind of like one of those mono character players, they say. I love playing clerics, and I kind of have this typical character that I always play. An older character, long gray hair, usually some kind of disgraced priest or something, trying to find himself, trying to reconnect with his god. I'm kind of like, I personally identify with that kind of character, and so I find playing them interesting. So for me, the Witch Hunter is a really fun character to play, especially if you get into some role playing. So he has an uneventful days chart, which most of the expansion characters have. He can charge his amulets, and there's a Witch Hunters Guild for him to find. And then you can find out what he gets when he's training. The Witch Hunter gains extra faith whilst in the presence of his superiors. Roll a dice, and this is how many faith points you gain. These are permanent additions to the Witch Hunter's faith score. Reroll ones as usual. So as you level up, your faith that you can take into each adventure can level up as well. You can get new items, new potions, artifacts. So in some ways, these guys are kind of like Warhammer quests. They're kind of like cleric James Bond type guys in some ways. They all their abilities come from their faith and then their items, and how they're like kind of like these really cool magical items. So yeah, that is the Witch Hunter. A lot of fun there. And then finally today, we're going to take a look at the Imperial Noble. This is one of the funnier characters, I think. I do not have him painted. To tell you the truth, I'm not really looking forward to painting him. I don't like those puffy sleeves and puffy pants and stuff. He's a fancy pants, definitely, and that shows in his character. He likes to look good. So he starts with an ancient heirloom, and his rapier is the weapon of choice, and he also has dueling pistols. He wears no armor because he has to have fancy clothes. And then we have some rules for his weapons. So his rapier cannot perform death blows, but it does cause 1d6 plus 1 wounds, so you actually get plus 4 wounds because you add his strength. And then the duelist. The Imperial Noble is a highly skilled swordsman. After years of training with the best instructors and countless duels to uphold his honor, he has developed a lightning style of fighting, testing his opponent with feints to the left and right and then pressing home attacks at very vulnerable spots. Even if his attack does no actual damage, if the noble hits with his rapier, then he may attack again. So if you attack and then your damage doesn't go over the toughness, you can keep attacking. Roll to hit and damage again, and so on until he misses. The noble may choose to attack different monsters or concentrate all his attacks on one monster. This means that while the Imperial Noble is using his rapier, he does not have a fixed number of attacks. So some of these expansion characters, you really want to only use their starting gear because their starting weapon is like what they specialize in, and that gives them their main powers. So that is kind of limiting in the fact that you're just not going to be so much concerned with using treasure that you get. However, if you're not going to be using it, you can just sell it for the gold value and then use the gold to level up. And so these characters may be less or more so than the characters in the base game, or less so. They rely on equipment less, or at least the equipment that you're going to find in the dungeons. And they're more about using the book and the rules in the book and leveling up to make them better. So he's probably not going to find a better rapier than the one he starts with. Maybe he will, I'm not sure. But I haven't looked at every single item that you could possibly get in the game. So this is Ancient Heirloom. And what this Ancient Heirloom does is it kind of signifies a mortal enemy that the Imperial Noble has. And any monster these monsters will fear. So you roll a dice, and like if orcs fear him, then any orc who fear the heirloom suffer a -1 to hit penalty when attacking the Imperial Noble in hand-to-hand combat. So he gets a racial bonus against enemies. He's racist against some monsters. Then there's the dueling pistol. So the dueling pistol causes 1d6 plus 6 wounds. Count the number of squares in between the noble and his target. To hit his target, the noble must roll over this number on a d6. Once fired, the pistol takes 1 turn to reload. The noble cannot reload the pistol if he is pinned by a monster. So that's pretty cool because it actually takes in the account the distance of the duel within how hard it is to hit. I like that a lot. And then we get to his book, and he has one of the funniest settlement rules. So because he's so fancy, he will only stay at the nicest hotel, so it costs more to, he's a high maintenance. He's a high maintenance character. And so he wants to stay only in the fancy hotels, and he wants to go shopping at a really nice place, kind of like Saks Fifth Avenue or Barney's or something. I don't know. I don't know what the nice places are anymore. So his special location is called Luigi and Salvatore, or Salvatore. Makers of fine arms and quality goods for the aristocracy, established in 2034. So this is like a fancy pants store. And he has to go here and spend a lot of money. So when buying something from LNS, you should roll 2d6 on the following table to determine the actual price. LNS decide you are not worthy of the item and put the price higher than you can afford. You leave the shop immediately in disgust. Double the price, whack on another d6 times 50 gold, or LNS decide to charge you its actual price. So these guys are a bunch of fancy pantses also. If the Imperial Noble finds out he doesn't have enough money, then he will be thrown out of the shop, and he will be so embarrassed that he leaves town immediately. And then this is the kind of stuff you can buy. Fine robes. You can buy a nice repeater pistol for only $3,000. That could end up costing $6,000 depending on how much they want to gouge you for. A blunderbuss. You can buy your rapier again in case you lose it. Oh, you can get a saber, but it's a normal sword. You can rebuy your dueling pistols if you lose them, a hunting rifle, ornate breastplate, necklace of pure silver, riding boots, a riding whip, a silver shot for your weapon, superior shot. And so these are the only things that the noble can buy. Then again, you have your uneventful day chart, and then training in your sword skills. And then that's it. So he doesn't add as much stuff as the other two we looked at today, but he is a lot of fun because he's all about spending massive amounts of money, showing how fancy and rich he is. So all right, so that's going to be it for today. I hope you liked taking a look at the Imperial Noble, the Witch Hunter, and the War Dancer. So like I said, this will probably be the last Warhammer Quest video for about a week or so. I'm hoping to have in the next couple days something really special. If it shows up in time, we'll see, fingers crossed. If not, then, well, it'll be a big disappointment. Not really. But all right, well, hope you guys have a good one, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.